The next one, I was a little surprised by. Tony Pollard's contract with the Titans.
Yeah, another. By the way, as long as I'm taking victory laps, I also want to take hits. I thought Tony Pollard was going back to Dallas. Okay. I didn't see this one coming at all.
I don't know if Tony Pollard saw this one coming.
Not sure what the Titans are doing.
I don't either.
I like Lloyd Cushenberry. That was a good signing.
Yeah, I just, again, it was just, we'll see. It's about the offensive line. Pollard wasn't great last year. The Titans' offensive line, I would argue, was the worst in the NFL last year.
It's up there.
Now he's got Tyjae Spears. So, the argument for Pollard last year was great offense and massive volume because Zeke was gone. And neither of those things mattered. Pollard was, by all accounts, I think he won the Peacocky for biggest fantasy bust, right?
We didn't actually give that to him in person, though.
We should have.
Yeah.
We should have. Well, that's on Steven. That's on our producer, Steven, who should have had Peacockies made. He didn't.
To be fair to Steven, he was not at the Super Bowl, so it might actually defer to backup producer Pete, who was.
Well, but Steven could have made him and shipped him out.
Okay, that's fair.
He knows how to pack a box. He knows how to address something.
Steven's just conceded that it is actually on him.
Yes, he's taking the L for.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, but yeah, I think he's probably, my guess is that Pollard, and it comes down to Levis, right? And we'll talk about this with Calvin Ridley here in a second too, but can Levis play? I like Levis, Connecticut kid, so he's actually one of my favorite players. I'm really rooting for Will Levis. I really like him a lot. I've interviewed him. He's a great kid. I really hope, he's the guy, but that's what it's going to come down to because the offensive line wasn't great last year. They need to obviously improve that, to your point about Cushenberry, at least that's a step in the right direction, right? And, but, Tyjae Spears, from the film, I don't know if you disagree with this, but Tyjae Spears looked like the better running back than Tony Pollard last year.
I was really excited
in a worse situation. Spears was in a much worse situation than Pollard was in terms of the offense and the line he was playing behind.
I was really excited for Spears going into the season. Obviously, his ADP is going to take a pitfall now with Pollard in tow. And I think that if you want to argue for Pollard, the one thing I will say, and Jay, I feel like you highlighted this a couple of times throughout the season, he was coming off a broken fibula. Yeah. So did they see something medically with Pollard that they are getting a better version of Tony Pollard going forward than what he was able to show at Dallas this year?
Yeah, and I think as well, one, that is a huge element. Two, the whole Cowboys running game just seemed off all season. Yeah. And then I think the issue with Pollard as well is that just his usage as a receiver, just it went down. His receiving yards went down. I would have been very high on Tony Pollard if he'd ended up in basically any other situation, but having a bad offensive line on what projects as a bad team, at least the team that's not going to be a 10-win team, we don't think, and he's got Tyjae Spears as competition, so it's a pretty bad situation for his fantasy value, but I think on a per-play basis, he's going to be better than he was last year, just with health, but it's not a good situation overall.
I think he's in that 20 to 25 range among running backs, but I'll just say this right now, if we were drafting today, I'd much rather Tyjae Spears at cost than Tony Pollard. Because Spears, to your point, everyone's going to be like, Pollard, he's on the wrong side of a committee on a bad team. I'd much rather Spears in the 8th round, the 8th or 9th round or wherever he's going than Pollard in the 4th or 5th, which is where he'll likely go.
And we'll see what they do at the 7th overall pick, because one of those first-round tackles next to Skoronski, next to Cushenberry, that's actually a very good left side of the offensive line.
Could Joe Ott, do you think Ott lasts to them?
I think he'll be gone, but if you get a Fuaga who would play on the right side or a Fashanu who would play on the left, they're going to have a lot of good options if that's the route they go. So I know that line stunk last year, and it still doesn't look great, but it can look very different quickly.
Yep.
So we'll see. All right, let's move on to DeAndre Swift. Was another guy, same contract essentially in terms of just the base, 3-year, $24 million deal with the Bears. It's kind of an hour one signing here, Matthew, for Chicago, in a backfield that was already a little crowded with third-round pick Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert there.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't make any sense.
I was shocked by this one.
Here's the thing. Last year we were just sort of when you knew it was going to be one guy, when it was this is a Deontay Foreman week. Oh, this is a Khalil Herbert week. When you knew it was going to be one guy because of injuries or whatever, that guy was productive. But now it's it's a mess. But here's what I will say. I think DeAndre Swift changed the narrative on him last year. He stayed healthy, and he was a complete workhorse back. When previously everyone had said, he can't stay healthy, and he's more of a scat back. The way Detroit used him was just getting him, and he didn't have any passing game usage last year at all, which was so weird given DeAndre Swift's skill set. So who knows? I mean, like, I feel like Caleb Williams never really dropped off, didn't dump off that much in college.
His escapability, though, at the NFL should, you would hope, lead to that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, so.
I'm not in on the Chicago backfield, but very in on the Chicago pass catchers.
Yeah, of course.
Which makes you more hesitant to go in on the Chicago backfield.
Fair enough. Exactly. So, anyway, whatever. He's a top 25-ish run. He'll be another guy that, like, you sort of, he definitely won't be a sexy pick where you just sort of like, hope he just emerges. Hope the money suggests that they want him to be the guy, right? The fact that he signed so quickly there and the money suggests they want him to be the guy. But again, they do have other guys there. It's weird.
I don't
it's a weird one.
understand why you're giving 3 years, $24 million to a running back on a young team with a rookie quarterback, and there's a chance that he might be the third best running back on the team. Like, that's in play. Like, there is a chance that Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson is better than DeAndre Swift. I know Swift was fine in Philadelphia. It's also not like he set the world on fire. Like, he had that one massive game against Minnesota in week 2. Right. He's very underwhelming in the second half of the season. Behind a much better offensive line.
He definitely fell off.
Yeah. And his usage kind of did too.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.